Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And today we are going over some of the most broken commanders in the history of Commander. Join with me is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How are you doing, Seth?
I'm doing super good. I love broken commanders. Well, actually, some of them. This should be fun.
Krim, the Asian Avenger, known to play a Leovold or two in his time. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's so funny though. Some of these commanders that we talk about today, I feel like I had a deck for some of them. So this is fun.
Yeah, I am the Codfather Richard, and actually, this list we've actually played probably all these commanders on Commander Clash. So we are no stranger to the brokenness of some of these. So we're gonna talk about the broken commanders that you can play. Talk about why they're broken. Maybe go into some ways to kind of mitigate them, and maybe our own commentary as to whether we think they're healthy for the game or not. So before we get into the main topic, today's show is brought to you by Ultimate Guard Premium Protection for your trading cards. You can use all the gaming accessories we use on this channel, such as our playmats, deck boxes, and sleeves. You can get them over at ultimateguard.com. And also Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. You can skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing. You can use a curated service where you send in as many cards as you want with buy list value of $1 or more, and you pay just a 5% service fee. You can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order is processed. You can get 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. So thank you to our sponsors, and it's time for the Ultimate Guard comment of the week. Last week's episode was Hot Takes Double Down or Take Backsies, and the top comment was from Ginger Bradley. On this episode of Hot Takes, will Richard continue to say good cards are bad because they make you look like you're winning? Will Krim say bad cards are good because they make it look like you're winning and that's fun? Or will Seth be gaslit into thinking removal is bad? Tune in and find out. I mean, Ginger Friendly is kind of spot on, but you know. All right, with that out of the way, let's head into our top 10 most broken commanders in a random order, not necessarily ranked in any way. We're going to kick things off with two honorary mentions. They are so broken that they are straight up banned. So these are currently banned. We thought it'd be useful to take a look at them to see why they're banned and see if we can draw any parallels with the rest of the cast on this list. So Golos, Tireless Pilgrim, and Leovold, Emissary of Trust. So Golos is a 5 generic mana commander, 3/5. When it ETBs, you may search your library for a land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. 2 and Wooburg, so 7 mana, 5C. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn without paying their mana costs. And Leovold is a 3 mana Sultai commander. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. Whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability opponent controls, you may draw a card. 3/3. So both of these are banned, probably deservedly. So what are we thinking? Or they've been banned for a while. Have we just power cut past them? Maybe they're safe. What do you guys think?
I this is gonna be funny. We did just do like what is it that ban but
No
at
ban list.
7 like no ban list. Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah. And I had Leovold, and though it was actually pretty nice, it shut down a lot of like the nonsense that goes on in a game of Commander. I think this was banned like a long time ago, right? Now knowing that like Nadu,
No way you're gonna say this is safe,
dude. I think
no
this
way
card
you're
is
gonna
safe.
say this is safe.
How? Okay, let me ask you this. Funny enough, these two commanders, like, I played and then Seth played the other one like a silly amount before it was banned. Because these two commanders, I think Golos probably still should be on there because Golos kind of pays for his own tax. He gets all the busted lands, but Leovold kind of just feels like he's been power crept, dude. I think this could be unbanned.
No.
Like after
no way.
what?
No.
After playing with it? Leovold didn't even feel that bad, to be honest.
That's
with you.
because
It's like,
we forced you to play it the fair way. Okay,
Yes.
so why is Leovold banned? It's very simple, right? It has that clause that each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn. You play Leovold, and you play a wheel effect. And a wheel effect is everyone discards their hand and then draws like 7 cards, or like Windfall draws like the highest amount. But Leovold just makes you discard everything and you draw 1. Right? And it's not even symmetrical, so the Leovold player gets their new hand. Everyone else down to 1 card. That's misery. And you can see why Krim loves it. Everyone else is essentially out of the game. They've lost their whole hand. Half the combo is sitting in the command zone. So it's a Staxy piece that doesn't end the game. That's a 2-card combo that sits in the command zone. I think it like checks like every egregious thing for a commander, and it may actually be balanced. I don't know. It may not actually be that powerful, but it certainly is miserable to play against, and nobody wants to play against this card, right?
I mean, okay, is it maybe miserable to play against? I think it's like, okay, yeah, it throws a few roadblocks in there, but like any commander deck, I don't think they all are loaded with a bunch of nonsense. How is this worse than
Have the decency to end the game.
yeah, but like you are effectively out of the game if this opponent so chooses to play like wheels and stuff, right? But even I don't know. I feel like this is no different than like Nadu.
But why?
There's Nadu. There's so many others. Godo, which is a 2-card combo. I don't know. I mean, this doesn't feel any worse than those.
Why wouldn't you play wheels in your Leovold deck though? Like, isn't that what it tells you to play? Like, if it was legal and you're gonna build around it, isn't that like the first cards you add to the deck, or like the windfalls and the so forth? Because that's like the best thing you can do with the card. I feel like it's tough to be like, oh, just like expect people to play it fairly or whatever. Because I think it just leads to games that no one really enjoys playing. Like, that's kind of the issue. At least Godo, outside of the fact that like you can potentially interact with it, but like without being down any cards, because Leovold also like protects itself, right? It has this ability that like protects itself, punishes you for targeting any of your Leovold player stuff. So it has that issue built in. So I think that's like a big part of like what the problem is with this card. So I cannot see any reason to unman Leovold. Like it's wild to me that we'd even consider that a possibility.
Okay, first off,
if you ban wheels, it's probably fine, but you can't really ban wheels, right? Like if it's somehow some clause that you were unable to cast wheel effects, then it would be fine. Like the other modes aren't as bad. Like it's banned in Legacy for like the other mode. Like it's like very obnoxious, right? But if you can somehow ban wheels, so if you play with a play group where you can police and say like rule 0, no wheels with Leovold, it's probably fine. But
yeah,
you can't trust the average Magic player to do that. It was like literally the card is asking you to do that, right? It's like play me with Windfall, right?
I mean, I'm not saying like this is a weak commander, like it sucks. It's obviously very good, but like that's the same as if you play against someone who just casually shows up with a Korvold or Yuriko or Urza, right? Like these are
spoilers, Krim. Spoilers.
Like no. We're not. What spoilers? The people won't know that's a spoiler unless you point it out. But like these are. I'm just throwing like powerful commanders out there, right? Like you see these powerful commanders, they do pop up. People like playing powerful commanders and whatnot, and this would just be another one of them, right? Like, how is this any different than allowing? Like, 'cause how many people do you know love building a Yuriko deck? You see the same process. Oh, I want to build Yuriko.
Actually one of the top decks on EDH rank. Period.
Yeah, but how many people do you see wanting to build it? They build it. They go, oh. It does what it does, and it does it well. Okay, then they power it down, right? And then they eventually just get off of it entirely. But, like, I think that Leovold's kind of just going to be more of the same.
But Leovold's like a resource denial card. Like, that's the difference between it and, like, a Yuriko, right? Like, Yuriko, sure, it's powerful, and it can deal a lot of damage, but it's about, like, executing its own game plan. Leovold, its main purpose is to just stop your opponents from playing the game at all. Like that's all it really does.
But you got to remember. I think, and this is maybe because again, this is a player preference thing. I think those pieces are needed in a game where it means it limits the amount of like time that an opponent has to spend on their turn. If I can shorten your turn's duration, I love that. Like,
I actually agree with Krim. I think this is kind of on par with some of these other cards we're about to talk about, but I would probably argue the other cards should join Leovold on the ban list rather than Leovold get out of the dungeon and join the other cards on this side, right? So,
maybe that's
okay.
fair.
Let's talk about Golos for a second.
Oh.
Why is Golos so egregious? It's because every time you cast Golos, you get to ramp a non-basic land, which actually, by now, the power creep is insane. This non-basic land is actually very strong, as opposed to when Golos was banned. But that pays for half your commander tax, right? So you make another land drop, Golos comes back. And we've
Yay.
seen Seth play, I think it was Golos Scouts. Something
still
like
busted.
stupid.
Still busted.
Still busted, right?
Seth
You
tried to play the
you pay
worst
7
Golem
mana
deck
to
he
top
could.
3, you play them for free. You know,
Yeah.
that's just broken, right? Like, that's just broken no matter what.
I mean, we've talked so many times before about Commander, like the two most important things, mana advantage, card advantage. Golos is both of those on an efficient body. Like, not only does it ramp you with its ETB, its last mode kind of ramps you as well a lot of the time, where you hit more mana value worth of spells that you get to cast for free. So it's putting itself back into play easily if it dies. You can tutor up non-basic lands, which is ridiculous. It generates a ton of card advantage, a ton of mana advantage. It's just, it's way, way too strong. There's no argument for unbanning this one, right? Like, and the other problem is it reduces the diversity, I think, of 5-color commanders, because it just is like clearly so much better than any of the other ones. And I think that's why I played it a lot when it was legal, is I like building 5-color decks. And if I didn't have a strong theme, I was just like, oh, I might as well play Golos because it ramps me and it, like, you know, lets me cast a bunch of cards. And then you just end up with all
mega
these,
solemn.
yeah, it really is. And you just end up with these super broken decks even when you try to power it down.
It's pretty absurd, dude. I the fact that you just destroyed us with scouts, and it's just like one of those things where I think you can't like even let it untap, right? Because then it's once, yeah, sure, it pays for its tax, it does all of that, but you let it untap, and then it has the most busted ability.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can activate right away, right? Because it's 5 mana, you ramp 6, you untap, you put a land, then you can just use the ability immediately. Okay, these cards are banned. We don't even need to talk about them. Let's see how some of our current contenders stack up to these recently banned. So there's other banned legendaries, but they're like super old, like Rothellos. You know, they were designed in an age before Commander was a thing. But these cards have been created knowing that Commander is a format. So let's talk about everyone's favorite bird, Nadu. Winged Wisdom, baby. 3 mana Simic, legendary creature, bird wizard. Currently the hot discourse in all of Magic, actually, in Commander, in Modern, everywhere. 3/4 flying. Creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, put it on your hand. This ability only triggers twice each turn. And it's important to note that's on the creature. So for every creature, it triggers twice. So you can trigger this a million times. The standard combo is to have some kind of landfall payoff. So when a land hits the battlefield, something happens. Preferably, it makes a creature. And then you have a free equipment, like a Shuko, which you can equip for free. You just move it. You move it around your creatures. You draw cards, you make land drops. The land drops make more creatures. You put them onto that thing. You grab your whole deck in hand. You win with a Thoracle or some other convoluted loop involving your whole deck and infinite mana. For 3 mana, 3/4 Simic in the command zone. How do we feel about Nadu Winged Wisdom?
Oh, this card should not exist in any format or any form. Like, it's not only is it really, really strong, right? It combos not only with the stuff you mentioned, but Krim mentioned like Lightning Greaves, which is already kind of a Commander staple. In Commander, you have all these blink effects that you can play to reset it to make sure you keep drawing and drawing. So not only is it a really strong card that's really easy to build around, it's also a really miserable card to play against, though, because this is going to lead to those really long terms. Krim was just talking about shortening your opponent's turn to make sure the games, keep progressing and moving.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of that, right? If you sit down against a Nadu player and they start like equipping their stuff back and forth and flipping their deck, that's going to take them 10-15 minutes of like drawing their entire deck as you just have to sit there and watch as it happens. And they're like making the tokens and they're only going to bristly bill, so now I got to put a counter whenever I do it. And it's just like, it's not fun for anyone. It's like not a good experience. So yeah, this card, they should ban it. They won't, but they should.
I mean, this is just a prime example of busted, right? Classic Simic mana costs, right? Like all in history of Magic, 1 blue-green is always the worst. This is just nuts, right? You can't even interact with it. Like, you can interact with it, but it requires the whole table at all times to keep their hand on, like, a check on you. Like, no matter what, like, the blue players will always counterspell you. They just cannot let you play anyways. And if they do, just simply Nadu sticking once, like they win, right? Because they don't care. All their creatures are replaceable. They're just like Llanowar elves, elvish mystics, a bunch of pointless creatures that they don't really care about. They don't even have to attack you on the turns they play them. Then they just go off out of nowhere, and then you don't get to play anymore.
So let me ask you guys, since this is actually not only one of the most busted commanders, it's one of the most popular right now. If you look on EDH Rec and like filter by what people are building in like the last month, this is one of the most popular commanders from Modern Horizons 3. It's number 3 right now in the last month. So you're going to see this probably a lot, assuming they don't ban it, which I don't think they will in the near future because they don't really ban anything. What do you do if you know someone in your play group has a Nadu deck? Like, is there anything you can do realistically to fight it? Do you just gotta like treat them like Phil, and from the start of the game, like the rest of the table has to gang up on them just because you know they're gonna pop off at some point? Like, is there anything you can do to make it a good experience if someone's playing Nadu at your table?
Everybody gets to pretty much like, there is actually no real way to make it so that it's not miserable.
You
Because
go home,
Yeah.
get dinner.
you let them
Like,
combo off, you go get food.
I feel this is like a CDH card, and I don't know if it's actually CDH power level. I haven't kept up, but it's like you need to build your deck in a very specific manner to deal with this deck. Like, your normal interaction is like, sure, you fire off a Swords to Plowshares on it, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna draw a card. I'm gonna trigger, so I get to draw a card, make a land drop. Next turn, I do it again. You got another Swords, right? Like, it doesn't work. You really do need like a humility or something, right? A
Yeah.
stony silence. You need like a hard lock to slow them down. So unless you're building for it, it's kind of like CDH. If you're not loaded with like 6, 10, 15 counter spells or whatever, like you're not going to be able to interact with the ad nauseum deck, right? So you need to build specifically for this. So if I'm playing a casual deck, there's a Nadu player, I think we're like, okay, you win. Do you have another deck to play? Right? Like, I don't know, right? Like, you mull aggressively for a spot removal spell, and hopefully every turn cycle someone fires off the spot removal spell while applying enough pressure onto Nadu to kill them. But they're still a Civic deck. Like, they don't need to run on Nadu. They just ramp and draw cards all the way up to like 10 mana, right? And then do their thing, right? So it's really tough.
It's also interesting how this compares to the band commanders we were talking about, because it puts the lands into play. It's another commander that's often going to pay for the command tax if it ends up dying. It generates card advantage, which is what we were talking about with Golos. And then its ability is almost even a little bit like Leovold's when it's played fairly, where if your opponent targets your stuff with a removal spell, you get to draw a card off of it. So it really does kind of mash together a lot of the worst aspects, I think, of Leovold and Golos.
But it only triggers twice a turn, Seth.
For every creature. For every creature.
Yeah.
Balance.
And this is Commander too, so it's super easy to protect your own Nadu, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not really, especially at a casual table, you're not under pressure of dying, right? You can wait till you get to like 7 mana, play Nadu with like 2 protection spells in hand, and each protection spell draws you a card anyway, right? So the whole table needs to be on high alert the whole time. So I think this needs to go. And then I think Krim mentioned this. Time equity at a table is a metric that no one really talks about, but really kind of affects how much fun you have. Nadu's just solitaring when they're doing their thing. Like,
Yeah.
why? What is the purpose of saving this deck and keeping it in the format? Just ban it, right? Like, well, what are we getting from this exactly? Nothing really, right?
That would be my solution. I would say if you're thinking about building a new commander deck from like Modern Horizons 3, I would encourage you, unless you're going to be CDHing, don't build Nadu, because I think you will like have the experience like Krim was talking about where you play it a couple times and then you're just like, I don't want to keep doing this. Or your play group's going to be like, please stop doing this. So you're going to like spend a lot of time and effort and money to build the deck and you're not going to get that much use out of it. So I would build something a little bit less powerful if you're in the market for a new MH3 deck.
Yeah, this is gonna follow the trend of like every Yuriko player.
Yeah.
Right? Like every Yuriko player like hits that. Oh, this is dope. Oh, it ran over everybody. Oh, it continues to do that. Okay, I don't want to play this anymore.
All right. Speaking of CDH, we got some mono red staples here. We got Slicer, Hired Muscle, and recently Alexios, Demos of Cosmos. So Slicer's a transformer. There's a backside and stuff like that. What you need to know is that it's a 3/4 double strike haste. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you may have that player gain control of Slicer until end of turn. If you do, untap it, goad it. It can't be sacrificed. Okay? And then Alexios, which we just recently played on Assassin's Creed. Phil played it. It's a 4/4 trample. It attacks each turn if able, can't be sacrificed, can't attack its owner. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player gains control of Alexios, untaps it, and puts a +1/+1 counter on it. So the way this plays is it passes around the table and chunks people down for huge amounts of commander damage. So Slicer is a 3/4 double striker. So that's if you have no blockers, that's 6 commander damage. And if the table decides to hit you down in one turn cycle, you'd be dead. Same with Alexios. It starts off as a 4/4 trample. It doesn't have haste, so the person who casts it can't attack. But immediately it goes to the next person, and now it's a 5/5 hasty. So it'll attack for 5, 6, 7, and then 8. So again, if someone decides, maybe a Nadu player is at the table, they might get focused down by Alexios or Slicer and just die instantly. How do we feel about these cards? So Slicer is a CDH card.
Yeah.
I don't know what the CDH community has figured about Alexios. When we played it, it felt more oppressive than Slicer because Slicer you could chump. Alexios you cannot chump. So you need to somehow deal with it. But if you deal with it, it gets cast again and immediately goes onto 3 attacks around the turntable. How do we feel about these cards?
I mean, do I think they're funny? Yeah. Do I think that they are aggressive as all heck? Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, we didn't even get past like turn 7 or something like that, right? We were very much so dying and very quickly because as you had mentioned, the trample makes it so nasty at a casual pot. Maybe in CDH, right, it's a little bit easier to like interact with because, it may not ever resolve. But in a casual pot, I feel like this is just, Alexios was nuts. Tomer, I remember we were all playing our meme transformer decks. And then Tomer's like, yeah, let's just try Slicer. It seems pretty. It's a transformer, and we just like I never even casted Soundwave, dude. I didn't even get to play Soundwave. It just died. I died instantly. So I don't know.
Just let you know, Alexios is an uncommon, by the way. That's like how like Wizards views this card, right? It's like an uncommon.
These cards are so funny because they look like kind of janky fun build-arounds. When you read them, you're like, oh, that'll be kind of fun, right? It's like Corona the False God, where I'm just like passing it around the table, and it's like gonna be a fun experience. But then whenever I play with or against these cards, I end up not enjoying the game that much. Like, it's just like such a weird, fast game, and it puts like the entire table against each other in a weird way because everyone's worried about like, if I take the hit this turn, I'm just gonna die to commander damage. So it ends up being like just not the most enjoyable experience. They're cards that don't look overpowered, but then when you play with them, you're like, oh my God. And that doesn't even include the people are going to build around them, right? You're going to be putting your commander plate on them or like other equipment on them and like stuff to make the clock even faster with these cards. So it's weird to me that these would be on our list of the most broken commanders. But if you actually play with them, I think it's a very reasonable addition. I don't know how you really like. I guess the way you stop these is just kill them and kill them and kill them. Like that's the like swords them and then path them and doomblade them and just keep like killing them every single turn until they get too expensive to recast. But they just put you under so much pressure where if you don't have that removal spell within like one turn cycle, you're probably dead.
I mean, the good lists don't play Voltron. They just play more ramp and mana, right? Because you play Alexios, you attack, right? If it dies, when it comes to your turn cycle again, you just like ritual Alexios again, and that's like 3 guaranteed attacks again, right? And you just keep doing it over and over. And it's funny the first time, maybe funny the second time, but it gets incredibly stale really quickly. I liken it to like stacks. The reason we don't like stacks is because you play Magic, but you play this weird game of Magic that you didn't envision in your head when you play, when you built your deck, right? You're still playing Magic, but the rules are all weird and stuff is happening that you may not necessarily want, and that's what Alexios and Slicer do to the game. In addition to putting an insanely fast clock, the real answer to these cards are like a Darksteel Mutation and Imprison in the Moon.
Yeah.
One that doesn't remove them, but like just shuts them down entirely. Then you're safe. Especially since it's red, they can't remove the Darksteel Mutation easily. But like swords is like kind of useless, right? Like the whole table needs the swords at every turn, but they're not going to, right? Because if Seth is right after the Alexios player, he has the swords. He's gonna take the Alexios first, smash Crim, and then swords it, right?
Yep.
Like it's still going into the game plan of the Alexios player. So swords is not the answer. I don't think you really do need Darksteel Mutation. So there exist decks where you can just let me tutor whatever I want out of my deck. I still can't deal with this, right? I'm just gonna die.
Just can't beat
Right?
it.
Like I gotta put a clock on you while doing this because I can't just keep removing it. I'm dying every turn, right? So that it's crazy.
And I mean, I guess player removal is always an option with any of these commanders. When it comes down to it, sometimes you just gotta
It's
kill
so
the slicer
hard.
player. Not that it's always easy to
Dude,
pull off, but
Can you like okay? The Assassin's Creed episode, I was an aggro deck, and I thought I was doing good. I had like 15 damage on like turn 6 or 7, but we were already at that point, like one swing away. Any one of us was one swing away from dying. So Alexios, like I would love to know how you can out aggro these decks. Like even if all 3 of us, like, because even if you didn't want to, right? Like it's got to swing. These cards have to swing somewhere. So that's the problem. So so what do? Do you swing it to the person to the left or to your right? Because at that point, somebody's got to go, and it has to attack.
I eventually ended up just
it's
flipping
weird
a
because
coin.
like if I swing at you, you're dead. So I swing at the other guy, and then now he's on death's door as well. And then we're trying to work together while murdering each other.
Yeah.
to get rid of the Alexios player. It's hard.
It is. Leads to some really weird games.
All right. Let's move on to another broken commander. This is my favorite. Rograkh, son of Rohgahh.
Okay, I feel like this is the Richard ad.
Yeah,
I don't know
No,
where.
no.
I need this is a Richard ad. Yeah. Why don't you tell us why this is broken,
Let
Richard?
me read all the text. There's a lot of text here. Legendary creature, Korvold warrior. First strike, menace, trample, partner. This is a CDH staple. Okay. Why is it a staple? There's 2 main reasons. The body, very unimpressive, right? It's a 0/1. You're like, well, we'll Voltron it up, but that's not what people actually do, right? The reason why this is incredibly broken is 1, it has the partner mechanic. So it allows you to choose your colors. So all of the commanders we've talked to so far lock you to a color, right? You play Nadu, you're Bant, or not Bant, sorry, you're Simic. Slicer, you're mono red. Rograkh, you can choose any other partner and create any color combination you want. But the real reason Rograkh is broken is he's a 0 mana commander that turns on Mox Amber, that turns on the cycle of free commander spells like Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting Swat, all that kind of things. And also it turns on the flares now, right? You have the red flare able to turn on now. And then there are 0 or 1 mana equipment that produce mana, like Paradise Mantle, that you can slap on Rograkh, turn him into a mana dork in the command zone as well. So that is why you see Rograkh in a lot of CDH decks. Like being able to put a creature on the board to use as fodder for your Mox Amber, for your fast mana. It's like getting another Soul Ring in your deck, right? So in casual, this is not as funny, but when you play it with Silas, which is a Dimir, you have a Grixis CDH deck. You can play with Timna if you want. That's a little weirder, but usually you play it with blue and black. So anytime you see a 0 mana commander that gives you flexibility in colors, it's CDHable. It's CDHable.
I mean, I think that's a good point, right? It's literally free. So even though it doesn't do a lot on its own, it just has so many different synergies that ends up playing much stronger than it looks at first glance. Even just turning on like the Fierce Guardianship cycle is so much upside. So yeah, I guess it makes sense in a weird way where you wouldn't play this as like your mono red commander without a partner or whatever, but in the context of like high powered decks, it's actually a really oddly strong card.
Okay, hold on. Yes, so it is a good CDH command, right? Because, like, obviously all the things that you'd mentioned, those are very powerful effects, turning on the free cycles. But let's say in a casual commander setting, right? These commanders, like, I think that CDH makes Rograkh strong because of the shell that can be built behind it, right? So then it pushes it into a CDH deck. But at a casual table, I feel like Rograkh, is it really bad at all?
Yeah, no, it doesn't do anything.
I think in
Right, like,
casual,
because
it's
Rograkh
much
enables
safer,
you
yeah.
to play free spells and fast mana, essentially, right? And
Right.
those are the things you typically don't play at a casual table. So at a casual table, you'd play probably Rograkh and Arden, which would be a Boros equipment deck, which is fine. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's nothing crazy. But it really enables fast mana and free spells, which are kind of the hallmarks of CDH, and probably the first thing you remove from your deck to take it from CDH to, you know, more casual, right? So at the casual table, Rograkh does nothing really.
Right, because I guess because I think of like the commanders we have talked about. Like I'm talking like if I saw them at a casual table, like people will try to build these casually. There are ways you can build some of these commanders at a casual level. They would just be on the deep end of the pool, right? So, but like Rograkh, I just don't know what level you would have to build this at casual to make it warranted to be on this list.
I think that's a good point.
You can play Boros equipment and then just play Mox Amber, Paradise Mantle, you know, all that stuff too, right? So I guess how much fast mana? Like does Ancient Tomb make your deck casual or not casual? Once you start slapping Ancient Tombs and Mana Crypts in your deck, like what happens?
I think
we're in
that's
that territory.
That's a different thing of like I guess deck building because like it's funny. I don't like playing with Mana Crypt, but I think Ancient Tomb is fine.
That's kind of weird, isn't it? It costs you a land.
They're the
drop.
same.
It costs you a land. Drop.
That is like a real. Like, that's not like Crim and he's off yelling at the sky again. No, like this is legitimately. I feel a lot of people feel this way in pods, and it's that Ancient Tomb is fine if you have one, but Mana Crypt, that's not cool. So
Mana Crypt is a lot more expensive, so it feels pay to win.
$110
too.
Wait,
it's
is it?
$100. Yeah, Ancient Tomb is $110.
It was reprinted in Lord of the Rings, though.
Balance Tomb is still expensive, but so like regardless, that's for another topic. I think just that alone, like so. You're most likely not to see a Mana Crypt, but even if you threw an Ancient Tomb in there, I still do not see many casual shells where this would just be like, oh my god, top 10 commander. I think
that's why you gotta go
if
CDH.
It's our
go
shout out to
CDH.
CDH. And in Richard's defense, he has killed us with it a bunch of times. So it might be scary in our pod just because Richard is very good with playing with it. But
I mean, so far we probably listed
like Armageddon
CDH commanders. So far, all of these commanders have been CDHable.
Our next one.
How about
our
this
next
one?
One's not. This isn't CDH.
Capitoline Triad. God, Assassin's Creed fans, I'm sorry. It's a 10 mana 7/7. This spell costs 1 less for each historic card in your graveyard. Exile any number of historic cards from your graveyard with total mana value 30 or greater. You get an emblem with creatures you control, have base power, toughness 9/9. So in our Assassin's Creed episode, one power rose up against Alexios.
Yeah.
And it was the person that got an emblem that made all your creatures 9/9.
Yeah.
You cannot interact with an emblem.
No.
There's no way to get rid of an emblem in Magic the Gathering. So it is fairly simple to get an emblem with the Triad here. Why did Wizards make this? Like, Seth got it on turn 4 or 5 or something consistently, got the emblem up, and then it was impossible to deal with. And it's
So
hard to
I
kill him
mean-
because he has 9/9s.
To be fair, Seth did also have Krark Clan Ironworks.
yeah,
and
drawing that
that's
helped.
a testament of just, whether that card is good or not. And then on top of that, you are an artifact deck. So this is a problem, right? But this is a problem only because the shell it goes in is already absurdly busted.
But like, you can Vandal Blast an artifact deck, right?
Yeah.
Like
Maybe.
provided you don't
Maybe.
die on the spot, you can interact with it.
Yeah.
You cannot get like an emblem required your planeswalker to like pass multiple turns and
Yeah.
then minus or like a 2-card combo or something with doubling season. This is sitting in your command zone. It's
Yeah.
coming down.
So how this plays out in practice is like you wait until you can actually do the thing with the Capitoline Triad. So you wait until you're like set up and you have enough artifacts and your graveyard's kind of full, and then you play it and you get the emblem right away. And then even if your opponent rasts the board or whatever, like I was winning the games with Springjack Pasture. Like I was using this horrible land that makes a 0/1 goat, but when it's a 9/9 for the rest of the game, it doesn't matter. You can Wrath me, you can do whatever, because all of these cards that are like priced to make these 1/1 tokens or 0/1 tokens, so they're really cheap and easy to use. Suddenly they're incredibly strong when they're making 9/9s, and there's no way to get rid of it. So I actually think I thought this card was going to be like kind of medium power level wise until I actually played with it, and it absolutely blew me away how strong it actually was and how easy it was to pull off, especially if you draw the KCI. But it was way easier than I thought to make the emblem. And I think the emblem, like, I'm a little worried about like the trajectory of this. Like, so far emblems have always been restricted to planeswalkers. Maybe this is like some weird exception because of Assassin's Creed flavor or lore that I don't understand, but I don't know if I want more things making emblems. Like, I think that would be a bad direction for Magic design to go, because emblems are just one of the most powerful things in Magic because they're not even cards that you can interact with.
I mean, I agree with that at least. Like this, if there is an emblem, it should be like something you really work for, like a planeswalker. You have to like wait multiple turns to get it, like you had mentioned. This and the shell that these go in, this thing's gonna go in. It's so easy to get to that emblem. Like you may as well just let it just ETB get the emblem, right? Like that's it.
I will say, if you actually play Graveyard Hate, you will shut it down. Like, if you actually are a responsible gamer who, like, just keeps my graveyard or the graveyard of the Capitoline Trio player empty, not gonna ever pull it off, right? Because you can't cast it, you can't activate it. So I think
Dude,
that's
you
the
like
way.
turn forward it.
Well,
You
yeah.
got time to dig for the graveyard hate.
Planner Void. You
gotta,
get
like,
that turn 1 Planner
Later
Void.
vote.
Yeah,
turn
you-
one.
The dot.
We really need emblem removal. This
We
is
do.
the new. This is
Ah,
the new.
no, no,
this
no,
is
no,
the new
no, no, no,
phase
no.
out exile zone.
No. Don't.
Why
don't
couldn't
put that
why
into
didn't it just make an
existence.
artifact with the static ability, right? Like, why did it have to be an emblem? Because they didn't want it removed. Like, why did they make an indestructible artifact? I don't know, flavor purposes, right? But no more emblems, please. Especially on something so
Agreed.
easy to get off. Like, this looks like a huge cost, but it's like Dredge or something, right? You're like, oh, my card costs like 10 mana, but it's Dredge, so it actually is 1 mana, right? Like this, the reduction and the ability to fill your yard. It's crazy. Okay. This is actually one of the most popular commanders. If you look at all the metrics. It's Yuriko, the Tiger Shadow. 3 mana Dimir. 1/3, but you'll never see that cost ever because it has Commander Ninjutsu. It's a blue and a black. Return an unblocked attacking creature you control to hand. Put this card onto the battlefield from your hand or the command zone. Taps and attacking. Whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top card of your library. Put that card in your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to that card's mana value. So no matter how many times Yuriko has died, Commander Ninjutsu always costs 2. Right? So there is no commander tax with this commander. And then people usually manipulate the top of their deck to put something crazy on top, and then domes everyone at once. So it's each opponent loses life equal to the card's mana value. So a pseudo combo piece here for the win.
If you see this plus scroll rack, just pick it up. Pick it up. like you're dead. Like you are so dead. I built this, right? This is what I built this. I love ninjas.
Oh,
I
you
love
played Jameer next, Crim?
Yeah, I know. I dabble, and even for me, like this is the one where okay, I draw the line here. I know this is gonna sound funny. Krim, did you just say like Leovold is fine? Yes, and that tells you where I think this card ranks. Like this, I think is absurdly better than Leovold. I think this is a busted commander, and usually what the problem is, there is no way to disassemble this deck. Right? The random ways are like what? Something that shuts down any activated ability. Sure. But if for some odd reason, if you have that corner pocket card in your deck, congratulations, you got it. But otherwise, everything in this deck is just Slitherblade. Okay. So I've killed your Slitherblade. I am now going to beast within your Slitherblade. Cool. The beast will attack now, right? Like it doesn't matter because everything they play is cheap, evasive, one drop, and all of them are replaceable. You kill the commander, oh perfect, it's in the command zone now. Like this is where I just pay the 2 mana again because there is no commander tax. There is very few ways to actually disassemble this deck's game plan.
Yeah, it's a very hard deck to interact with. I think like the biggest takeaway maybe so far is like don't mess with the command tags. Like if you look at our list so far, Nadu, Golos, you can even argue that the Capitoline Triad like kind of cheats on the command tags by like getting the cost reduction.
By the way,
Capitoline, the trampoline Triad. But it kind of cheats on the cost by getting enough historic permanents in the graveyard. So I think the lesson is like just don't do this, Wizards. This is just like a mistake card, right? Like I think Wizards has even said that it was a mistake, like with hindsight to doing the Commander Ninjutsu thing. So I hope Wizards realizes that you just really can't make commanders like that or they're going to be busted. Like it breaks like one of the most fundamental aspects of the format, which is you have this card that you always have access to that you build your deck around, but it gets more expensive when it dies to keep you from fully abusing that, like that quirk of the format. So I think that that's like the issue. I don't know what you can do to really stop it. There's not an answer, right? There's no good answer to like just beating a Yuriko because it's just going to keep coming back, like Krim said.
Humility.
Darksteel Mutation. Humility.
Yeah. Player removal.
So does this further the narrative that, hey, maybe a little bit of cards like that lock people down and, you know, they might actually be needed, Seth, would you say?
No, you just don't
what is the
term? No, it's not an argument for stacks. It's an argument against printing cards like Yuriko. I'm pretty sure. Like, yeah, so you can deal with any commander on our list with humility, but does anyone want to live in that world where there's always a humility on the battlefield?
Did you say you can handle any commander on our list with humility?
I might have.
I got you.
Uh-oh.
The Dragon. Okay. 4 and then Wooburg. So 7 mana, 5-color commander. 10/10 legendary creature, dragon avatar, one of the most popular dragon commanders, this and Miram. Eminence. As long as the Dragon is in the command zone or on the battlefield, other dragon spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Flying. When one or more dragons you control attack, draw that many cards, then you may put a permanent from your hand onto the battlefield. Sitting in the command zone, exerting its influence on the game. Yeah. Humility does not affect things in the command zone.
It's true.
Yeah.
You know what? Eminence is
Sword Markov is another Eminence card that matters. But Dragon's probably the egregious one.
Eminence Eminence is essentially an emblem, right? Like it's a thing that you can't interact with ever because there's no way to like get your opponent's
You
commander
start
out of
the
the
game
command
with it.
zone. So it's like an emblem that
Although-
starts on the battlefield. It's like, why would anyone think that was a reasonable design? Like I get where
But
they're
wait.
going, like, oh, dragons are super expensive, so we're gonna help you ramp them out. So I get what they're trying to do, but like, I think you should be able to interact with everything. And Eminence,
You can.
ugh, how do you
can.
interact with Eminence, Grim?
Because the dragons they're ramping in will be 1/1s through humility. so it's like
I guess that's
so they
true.
paid. It's like that card from Scourge, the one with Unmorph or whatever. It's like an 8-mana 1/1, a 7-mana 1/1. Like yeah, that's the main way. Or number 2, yeah, you gotta. Outside of that, I'm sorry, you're out of luck there, buddy. You gotta, they are Eminence is absolutely nuts and busted. But I think they. Actually, didn't they agree that it was a mistake and then go and print the Esper Knights Commander with Eminence?
they printed that one in a way that like looked safe, but then I played against it a couple times and it's actually still it's like building Golo Scouts. Like you think, oh, we're gonna build safe Eminence on this card, but no, Watsy, you're not. It's still not gonna be safe as much as you think it might be.
Yeah, I think they just need to like stop with Eminence. Like Eminence should never come back. Like again, very few things I complain about. One of them is Eminence.
I mean, so
Homer
Oloro is the
definitely-
OG Eminence, right? That's the one that
Yeah.
gains 2 life during upkeep. That was like almost reasonable. Like I get Wizards'
No,
thought process.
no,
your
it's
your
not.
thought process was like, I build my deck around my commander, and it sucks when my commander is not on the battlefield. So let's have it do something while it's been removed. However, it's too oppressive. Like I don't know. I don't know how you have it do something because that inherently means it's not you can't interact with it, right? And then that is a big problem because if that effect is what reasonable such that you want to play this effect, that means the rest of the table wants to remove it, but they cannot because it's not interactable. So either you make the ability complete trash in order to play the deck, or it's good, and then the 3 players at the table have no choice but try to kill you from turn 1 because they can't deal with the actual effect. So
Yeah,
terrible design. Terrible design.
Terrible. Also worth
And
mentioning,
Wizards keeps trying to fix it.
Dragon itself, number 2 commander on EDH Rec. This card is super popular. Why do you think we like broken commanders so much? Because also Yuriko is like number 5. Like it seems like as much as we're saying these cards are too strong or maybe even mistakes in some cases, they're also the cards that most of the community is building around apparently.
Okay, so let's be honest here. I just recently had a whole group of friends who have not played Magic up until about a month or 2 months ago, right? What is some of the things that appeal to people? Dragons. You think of fantasy, just big dragons.
Yeah.
Dragon does that. Yuriko, when you think about it, what it does, the type that it plays with, ninjas, ninjutsu, that has massive casual appeal. These are things that just every Timmy wants to play. Oh, cool. The idea of ninjas in this game are fun. You know, it's just like goblins, elves. Well, because these typles are just so popular, I think that's why. Unfortunately, you know, these are also the best commanders. So when you get into the game, you think, oh, I'm going to just build this, and this is what everybody plays for a dragon deck. This is what everybody plays for a ninja deck. So I think it's just the growing pains of every commander player. They start there, and then they downgrade from Dragon to Miram. And then they realize that, hey, dragons aren't as actually hard to play as they should be. So then they become Tomer, and they just play Sword of Kaldra in their changeling deck. and then they realize, oh, okay, no, Tomer's changeling deck is the truth. Don't that deck is the truth. But that's the same as ninjas, right? Like you start Yuriko, then you go to the Satoru Umezawa, which you still find out's kind of busted, and then you go to Satoru and Goro. And then, okay, like now you get to do ninja stuff or the new Satoru. But these are just archetypes that are popular amongst the casual crowds.
People just want to win. You're gonna spend
$500, $1,000 on some random jank. That's content creator problems, right? Like, if I'm going to spend like $500 to build an EDH deck, better be legitimate.
And what would I do? I would just go, what are the top decks? Oh, okay. Dragon is a top deck. I like dragons. Okay, cool. Let's go. Right? Like, if
Yeah.
I like, I don't know, otters, and I'm like, otters ranked number 652, I'm not going to spend $500 on my otter deck unless I'm a content creator, right? So I think it's, you have one deck, you might as well build a good deck, right? So I think people tend towards these super powerful commanders, which I think is somehow a net negative, right? Because if you want to play your otter deck, well, your otter deck needs to beat Yuriko and the Dragon now, right? So this is going to be a
Yeah.
tough sell, right? So I don't know. But yeah, the most popular commanders are all super powerful.
They
I
are.
don't,
Yeah,
I
you
don't
don't
see
see
a
too many janky bad
there's too many
commanders at
jank.
the top of the list. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of powerful, Korvold, Fae-Cursed King. 5 Jund mana, so black, red, green, 4/4 flying. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Korvold and draw a card.
Wizards really want to brawl to be a
can't.
thing. They really wanted it. They just pushed those brawl commanders so ridiculously hard. This card, the problem is it just does too much right away, right? Like as soon as it comes down, by the time you play it, you're gonna have a big board full of things you can sacrifice because that's what Korvold wants you to do. And then even if your
Snacrifice.
opponent has a way to interact with it in some way, you just keep sacking stuff in response and draw a ton of cards and like generate so much value. So I think it's just too difficult to interact with. And then it also gets so big that it turns into like this Voltron-y one-shot kill threat too is like a bonus. But I think that's a big issue with Korvold. It's just like there's not a good window to really interact with it other than with a counter spell. And then people get sad if you counter their Korvold.
Okay, I don't know about y'all, but maybe it's just my friend groups. I don't think I've seen a commander like that has a higher representation. Like this commander is the most popular commander amongst my group. When I always hear with it, oh, don't worry, I built a casual version of Korvold. It's always Korvold.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You think you did, but you did not. You're deceiving yourself.
And then it always ends the same.
The only way to do it is you build a noble deck with no sacrifice synergies, right? Because the minute you have a sacrifice synergy, you are basically drawing your deck and building a one-shot commander, right? So it is like impossible to build this casually unless you explicitly go out of your way to not take advantage of any of its mechanics, which is very difficult. And sacrificing is not a real cost in 2024, right? Like there are lots of things that want to be sacrificed, are made to be sacrificed, that give you sacrifice fodder. So, this is not like sacrifice the best card in your deck. This is just sacrifice random fodder you put in your deck for the purpose of being random fodder. Draw a million cards, one shot you with Korvold. I don't like this card because it's like Nadu, but not as bad, where they're just solitaring. Sack, what do I draw? Sack, what did I draw? Sack, put it, and they gotta manipulate the dice too, turn the die. Where's my 6? Where's the 7? Right? And it just takes forever for them to play their turn. And it's, I don't know, we've seen it too much. I think it was cool like the first couple times, but it just takes so long to play. So I don't really like this card, but it's kind of balanced. No?
You say noble, just include nobles and only nobles. But I think the problem is as long as you have a thing to sacrifice.
Just sack your lands.
Just literally your own lands. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like there's this card, there could just be a bunch of other random garbage in the 99. All you need is this. And I think this is one of the ones where it's so busted. I'm sorry. I don't even think your noble deck is going to be a fair game.
It might still be busted as nobles. It's like such a strong card. And it's got like some of the Nadu time issues as well, where like every time that you trigger it and sacrifice something, you draw a new card, which changes information you have to work with. So then you got to think like, should I be playing this card? Should I do something? And then you sack the next thing. I played against some Korvold decks that definitely play those like 10, 15 minute, like super long combo turns. Like, just kill me. I know I'm dead. Like, come on, just do it. Just do it already. And that's like my Korvold experience. Kind of hate that card. And Korvold's one of those ones where like there's lower powered sack options available that are not going to be as oppressive, but you can build like the same style of deck. And I think you'll probably end up having more fun in the long run. And the rest of the table will also have more fun in the long run. So I would just look for like a replacement probably.
If you like sacrifices so much, just play like Ziatora or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, an oldie. Is this one still considered scary? Najeela, the Blade Blossom. 2 in a red, so 3 mana value, 3/2. Whenever a warrior attacks, you may have its controller create a 1/1 white warrior creature token that's tapped and attacking. Wooburg activation, so 5 colors. Untap all attacking creatures. They gain trample, lifelink, and haste until end of turn. After this phase, there's additional combat. Activate only during combat. So easy infinite combat commander if you have some kind of untap effect, like a Sword of Feast and Famine or something, because Najeela makes a warrior that's attacking. And then on the second combat, that warrior token makes another warrior token. Like they don't count non-warriors. So you need someone you can hit a couple times, build up an army, then you can start hitting people with boards. Tomer built me this deck actually a long time ago. Is this still? I feel this is a little tame in today's world. There's a lot of infinite combat commanders, right?
I think this
is it.
Like,
how popular is it actually?
I think this is like the cheapest of the bunch, and also like the most snowbally of the like take a bunch of combat commanders. So I think it's still, I would say that it's still pretty strong. Maybe it's not like as busted as it was at its peak when it first came out, because it is like kind of aging now. It is currently ranked 63, the 63rd most played commander, which isn't quite as high as like Korvold, which was like in the 20s or whatever, but considering there's like 2,000 or 3,000 commanders now, it's pretty high up there. I think the card is still very, very strong. It's one of those commanders that kind of just wins by itself because its ability supports its ability, and you just keep making this increasing horde of warriors. It's pretty easy to build a deck where this is like one of your combo pieces from the command zone, and then you play the extra combo piece, and then you just end up taking all the combats and winning the game. At least it like, I guess, is merciful in the sense that the game actually ends. It's not like Leovold leaving you with no hand or like something like that, or sitting there while Nadu draws its entire deck. So at least it mercifully like will actually make you die when it does its thing deterministically. But I still think it's kind of on the upper level of power.
This card, I don't know. I mean, I've always associated with CDH.
Yeah, it is a CDH commander.
Like this one, I've always associated with CDH. I've seen lots of just like normal non-CDH versions of this. Not that bad. Not that bad.
You just fire swords on it. It's pretty good. Yeah. Like everything else, you're like, oh my god, like the swords did nothing. Like Korvold drew like 60 cards, coming down, right? Like Yuriko's just coming back. This one, you're like, actually,
yeah,
they
like
need haste. They need to attack. They gotta like
you need to have a lot of bodies.
That was actually a reasonable answer.
But CDH though. What about CDH?
Is this still CDHable in this day and age? I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, I don't.
But yeah,
I don't play
maybe.
CDH.
Like I think if we wanted a strong attacking commander, Winota is up for contention too. We haven't listed Winota here, but Winota requires a combat step. It can cheat in creatures, but yeah, Najeela.
Winota's worse, right? Winota is, I think, significantly worse than this. Like, as in, like, a scarier card to see than this.
Yes, because you can slap down some very scary creatures, where this one is like a combo. This one gets thwarted by a single fog, Krim. A single fog. And
but what if there's a humility?
Oh, true. If there's humility, then, whatever. I think I get what everybody should get from walking away like from this podcast is that maybe humility isn't so bad.
Play more humilities. Yeah, if there's one takeaway, your play group will love you.
I mean, is that not fair? Let's say you're playing, I don't know, Jeskai Storm. I guess that's not casual anymore, right? Like, what if you're just playing something that doesn't
Wait, why isn't Jeskai Storm casual?
You're playing Storm in a casual setting.
I don't think.
Okay, hold on.
What if you just play some medallions and just fire? Like, humility seems perfectly reasonable to lock down the board while you do your spell combo, right? But I'm pretty sure that's not. That's not okay with most people.
I don't think you're allowed to.
storming. Well, I'm not saying like you don't play the fast mana. You don't do any of that. You just play like a normal like arcane signet. Maybe you have like a ruby medallion or whatever, right? Like, right? Like,
Did you just say
I
fairly storming? Is that?
yeah,
Is
yeah.
that, I think that's an oxymoron. I don't think you can
Is it?
fairly
I don't-
storm in
hold on.
Magic.
Can't you have a
Just
fair storm
barely
deck?
storming.
Yeah.
Can you? Is it actually? I don't know if you can have a fair storm deck. I think like it's just
means
an
a
inherently
slow
unfair
storm deck.
mechanic. Okay.
Yeah, there's like weather forecasts letting you know to prepare for the storm. That's so like I don't know.
The problem is a lot of decks just don't have an answer. Like if you're not
Yeah.
playing blue, you don't have a counter spell. You're like, how am I going to stop this? Right? You need, I guess, like a ley line of sanctity or something. I don't know, right? Like there are decks where I can give you 3 mana. You can tune up 3 cards from your deck, and I'm like, I still die. I can't do anything about this because I am not in the counterspell colors, or I don't have humility to shut down your very specific combo, right? So I think that's where it starts getting CDH, right? Because when you play CDH, everyone's packing counter spells to deal with these fast combos. But at a casual table, that's not allowed.
Yeah.
But I still think, why can't you just play? What if you play humility and anthems? Is that allowed?
So
Like, what if
Okay.
you have like a real plan? Is that allowed? Does that really seem that bad? Would you rather see me cast 3 farewells? What if I just humility and save the trouble here?
Richard, you're talking to the guy though, where I think that it actually is genuinely fine as long as you can disclaim that you are playing a powerful deck. Like I'm not going to be like, oh, I play humility in my 5, right? Like this, I'm obviously going to just let you know that yeah, I'm playing a high power commander deck. It is casual. It's on the higher end of power, but in casual.
it is one of the saltiest cards according to the salt score over on EDA track. So I think like in general, people don't like it. I think the problem with humility is it wrecks the super casual low powered players just as much as it wrecks the high powered players. Like you have the person that's
So
just
it's
like
even.
well, yeah,
You're evening
yes.
the battlefield, right?
So you-
But you got the poor person that's
the
just trying to
grizzly
play.
bear can now match up to that mythic that does 10 things
Yeah.
on ETB.
Yeah, like Ulamog, dope. One.
Okay. Last card, which gets got by humility. Urza, Lord High Artificer, 2 blue, 1/4. When an ETBs creates a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature, with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. Tap an untapped artifact you control, add a blue. 5, shuffle your library, then exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost.
It's like blue Golos,
Broken
but it
artifacts.
also staxes. it's so the best cards
Wait.
with it are also like Winter Orb or whatever. Like
How
the
does it
stack
stack?
piece. Well, no, the cards that
Oh.
it wants you to play with it, or like usually stacks pieces are the best way to play with it. So I think it's just another like mana advantage / card advantage commander. They also can be Voltron-y because the construct it makes is so big in an artifact deck, and then it wants you to like play the Winter Orbs and the Static Orbs and these like really hard to get out of prison pieces because Urza can tap them to not have them affect you during your turn. So yeah, it's in blue, which is a lot of people's least favorite color because you got all the counter spells to deal with. So when you add all that together, you have a very, very strong commander.
I mean, you said it right there. Artifacts.
Artifacts.
That's it. Like,
We had to have
artifacts
artifact
are
commander on the list.
like the artifacts are one of I still to this day I feel like artifacts might be the most busted archetype in Commander. Right? Like no matter what happens, they all play out the same. Richard tried to do something on the all artifact, all creature episode week. Sure, but it ended up
Oops,
all
went
the same.
infinite.
Yes,
Yep.
I went infinite. Yes,
Oops.
you did. But like, and I'm gonna be very real with you here. There's very few things you can do to like legitimately shut this card down because I think artifacts have so much recursion. Just know that whatever version you think that you are playing of this, and even if you think your version is balanced and way different than the others, I promise you it will be broken. I promise you it will be broken. If you went Urza enchantments, okay, then and you had 0 artifacts, you even removed your soul ring, then I would say okay.
I'm sure you can somehow break it using the 5 ability.
Man, yeah, there's
Yeah,
probably a way.
Actually, yeah, you know what? Never mind. I take it back. I take it back. This can't. There is a very obvious reason for that, and it's because everything in an artifact has recursion built into it. It breaks in some way. It combos off. It leads to some kind of loop. So the best thing you can do is slow it down, beat on the Urza player. That's how you beat it, but you don't stop doing it. I always feel bad. I'm like, oh, the Urza player is giving me the puppy dog eyes. All right, I'll let him live. And then I lose, right? And then it's like, oh my God.
All the abilities are kind of irrelevant. The first and third abilities are, cool and all, but it's really the tap and artifact you control to make a blue. That's like infinite mana in a proper artifact deck, right? Because you can make like infinite clues, foods, treasures, like whatever, and then you use that mana to make more artifacts, and they're not summoning 6, so you can use that to make more mana. And then good thing you're blue, so you can counter any like counterplay someone has to do anything here, right? So that is crazy. And then for some reason, when you run out of gas, you just start flipping the top of your deck with that 5 ability to like get more stuff. So it's really that mana ability. It's crazy. It's like having Dockside in the command zone.
Yeah,
or something like that, right?
it's like a ritual in the command zone, essentially, right? Because this is usually coming down, you get a bunch of artifacts, and you immediately tap them to make mana. Yeah, it's so over the top. And then worst case, like you can always use it to generate card advantage too. So it's a very difficult card to stop once it hits the battlefield.
I mean, the only thing you can do is hinder it with like what Karns and Stony Silences if you have that.
Oh God.
So Stony Silence doesn't even work.
Not really. You can
Because
still tap the artifact because
the ability is on Urza.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you really need the humility.
You need humility and Stony Silence. Yeah.
We've come the
But
more
like the construct it makes like gives it a mana. Like it comes down with the 1 mana discount, right? Like it's kind of dumb.
It is kind of dumb.
all I'm getting is, again, we need more humility. I'm sorry, power creep has done this.
I mean, it's why people are salty about Dreaded Magistrate, right? Like you lock out the commanders. All commanders are creatures. Humility will lock them out as well. Now, I would personally just ban these broken commanders rather than have to deal with humility every game, because you know what? My Rograkh equipment deck is gonna get got by humility too. Actually, it actually counterplays that because
your
creature,
equipment deck
It grows your Rograkh.
But like your janky creature combos will also get destroyed by humility. And you didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve to get humility with your like otter deck, right? So that's the problem.
You discredit the otters, but I know. I know. All right.
Bloomburrows
they're gonna be busted. So they have to be.
All right.
I got one more question. One more question. So if Leovold and Golos are the bar for banning a commander, how many of these do you think would meet that bar in your opinion? Like, will all 10 of these, like, ban them all, pick and choose some of them? Because it's hard for me to see, like, Slicer being, like, or Rograkh really being bannable. So how many of these would you actually think the format would be better without? Maybe 5?
Urza?
I'm somewhere in the 5
Urza,
range.
Nadu.
Urza, Nadu. I would argue Yuriko. I know people love the like ninjas or whatever, but I think power level wise, I think I would get behind that. And I could see Urdragon and Korvold too, honestly. Like maybe a tier below those, but all of them, get rid of all of them.
So except Najeela. So let's say if I had a Friday night commander game and every week you guaranteed that I would play one of these in my pod, I would simply not go. Right? Like I want to play against Alexios every week. Like, no.
Yeah,
like,
no,
once
probably
is
not.
fine.
Yeah.
Right? Do I want to play Nadu every week? I'm like, nah. Okay, so Rograkh, if it's casual, I guess it's fine. Najeela is reasonable. Everything else can go. Like, I don't want to see. These are the kind of decks where you can play them once or twice. It's fine, right? But week in, week out, I'm like, nah. Right?
Yeah.
Wait. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Urdragon is busted. It's very powerful. But I don't think that Urdragon is like, oh my God, I'm not playing this pod.
It's done.
Maybe Urdragon's on the thing.
Eminence.
Like, Slicer, definitely no. Urza, no.
Okay. Wait,
Nadu,
Slicer,
no.
Slicer's the best way where, you like you've had a long day at the office, you want to kick back, you just want to have a quick game of Commander, but you want to play Magic, but you don't want to play too much Magic, so you just play Slicer.
It's not even worth shop. I mean, if you're the Slicer player, it's funny, at least a couple times. But what if you spent your time elaborately crafting this deck and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna make it to 5 mana and play my commander, and like it never gets there because you're already dead all the time.
Well, Slicer's like the appetizer, right? It's the appetizer. It's not the main meal.
Oh,
you
and
get
then you
there.
play the real game after.
Yeah, then
after a
you
couple
play the
Slicer
real
game.
games.
I would
No,
just start. I would start my commander night an hour late. I'll just come for the second game. I can't imagine playing. Can you imagine playing Slicer every week? That's
No.
horrible.
Oh
There's
no,
way.
it's not even
Wait,
like a
how
real
though?
game
Okay.
of Magic, really.
Yeah,
let
it's not a real
me
game of
ask you
Magic.
this: how do you feel about losing to red deck?
Which red?
Like we're talking like think of like the best red decks in standard in their heyday, right? People would always complain, like me being one of them, because I was always playing a Dirtle deck, but you would just lose instantly, and that
It's
was
not
that.
about the losing. It's about the play pattern.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like if I played my deck and it did kind of like it didn't even have to do its thing. It just played the way I thought it played, and then I lost. I'm fine, right? But,
Hazaret
like,
red or whatever. How about that? That was
it's like that's fine. That's a game of Magic. But like
What, okay.
Slicer changes things, right? Or it's like
Does
if a Winter Orb was guaranteed to be on the battlefield every game on turn 1, I'd be like, I don't want this. Right? Like it just makes the game play out in a weird way. You know, like when we
The
play
polar
like
opposite
4-way
of a
control
Winter Orb.
mirror, the game
Yeah.
plays like totally weird and it's fun once in a while. But if that was like every game with every deck, then you're like, this is weird. Like this is not Magic the Gathering.
maybe I'm a glutton for pain.
It's kind of like chaos. It's kind of like a chaos
I loved
game
it.
almost.
Yeah,
There's that same
chaos.
feeling where, like, in small doses, I have a ton of fun with it. But when I wanted to play a chaos game every week at my commander night, no, that would
Yeah.
get old.
Dude,
I would like to
my
use
god.
the permanents I put in my deck, please, Chris. I would like my creatures to have abilities and not humility, like is that hard to ask?
I find it offensive you use my name directly. Like I would prevent you on a weekly basis. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think, come on, I think you're like Slicer.
You play a Yuriko deck every week. Every week it's arch enemy against a Yuriko player, and maybe they get there, maybe they don't. And then you play a 3-player game with everyone at like 5 life afterwards because that's what Yuriko did to you.
Yeah.
That's a
Like,
weird game of Magic.
Yeah. Yeah. Like but see, the thing here is I think we know Yuriko is powerful, right? So Yuriko is fine. It's obviously absurdly like powerful. But I think in actual gameplay, things that would just absolutely ruin a table, not like I'm talking like my play experience, equity, time equity, all of that. I think Nadu and Urza decks are the only two that actually should be like banned, right? Because
you like getting sliced every week.
dude, I don't mind getting. I didn't invest enough time to care about if I lost the game, right? Like it's like, oh, yo, time equity, bro. Okay, you killed me in 3 minutes. That's sick. Next game, but like Urza, I'm gonna sit there. I'm gonna watch you spin your wheels. I'm gonna watch you untap with like a clock. You're one of those unwinding clock things, and then you're gonna blasting stations. And you're gonna do this, and you're like, but hold on, my grandma is calling. And so hold on, I'm gonna mid combo make you all wait. And then so it's like, dude, please, oh my god. And then it's not definitive because they may not win. So same with Nadu, and Nadu is just like, hold on, wait. How many times has it been targeted? Oh, once? Okay. Actually, no, I did target Takesy Backsies. I'm going to move it here. So these are the only two that I think actually need a banning. I think the rest are just busted commanders. Like, they are very powerful, but I don't think they need a banning.
I think they're caveat commanders. So if you bring this commander to a random pod, you need to tell everyone, hey, I'm playing this thing, right? And if you don't do that, you're probably in for a wonderfully imbalanced power game. So I think we should just remove these caveats and either, if they're too powerful for casual, just ban them, right? Otherwise, like, why? Even we who play Commander every week talk about this all the time, can't guess the power of Alexios beforehand. Right? Whatever, right? And I'm like, oh my god, this game is terrible.
It's so busted,
right?
yeah.
But imagine if you were a new player, you bought this $500 deck or whatever, you come in and everyone just shoos you out of the store because they don't want to play with you anymore. Like, that's terrible, right? We should just ban this to prevent this, right? I don't want the rule 0 talk. Right, so if we know these cards produce unfun games, we might as well just get rid of them. Like, what is what is the benefit? I guess that Transformers fan who likes Slicer, which I don't even know who Slicer is.
I would. Can you imagine this? We're sitting at a pod. Someone shows up with a Slicer shirt, their favorite Slicer toy attached on their backpack with Slicer. Like, I just really like Slicer. I'm just imagining Richard and Seth going, "No, you
Nope,
cannot play.
no, out of
one."
here. Get out of here.
No, gone. No,
Out.
no. like,
Well, I'd let him play.
but
I'd
but
just
Slicer's
humility
my
him.
favorite.
They can play. I'm just going to
Welcome to
humility
the
him,
play
and then
group.
it's
I'm
fair,
gonna kill
yeah.
you now.
You hear
I
that?
mean,
Seth agrees.
that's basically what we did with Phil. Welcome to Commander Clash. Now we must kill you.
I mean, but Phil knows that
yeah, he
plays
does know.
busted commanders.
Well, I mean, after one game, I think we all understood the power of these cards, right?
Oh,
but
yeah.
before that one game, we're like,
Yeah, no, that is true.
yeah. Golo Scouts taught us everything we need to know. So yeah, let us know what other busted commanders that we've missed. We listed like Winota's probably should be up here.
Winota,
Probably
yeah.
anything in the top 10 of EDH Rec deserves to be here because we know people love their broken commanders. And let us know what you think about the balance. Does Leovold deserve to be banned?
No.
How does he stack up against this list of commanders? So that's an interesting one as well. So let us know in the comments, and then we'll see you all back here next week.